Hi friends! Welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Katelyn and I like to film eyeshadow palette ranking and review videos, as well as the occasional other content sprinkled in. So if you like indie makeup, if you like eyeshadow palettes, if you like me, I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button because I post 2 videos every single week. And for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that my hands are happy that you are seeing them again. So as you can see by the title and also by the fact that we're just staring at a pile of eyeshadow palettes, we're going to be doing a collection and declutter video today. But I'm going to do mine a little bit different. I've already decided the palettes that I want to declutter. And when I declutter, I like to put my palettes in a box in another room and just kind of like out of my collection, and then come back to it in a few months and then decide from there if I'm like truly ready for them to go or if I want to keep them around or I miss them or whatever. I can't just part ways right away. So we're going to talk about the palettes that I've decided to declutter first, and then we'll go through and talk about what's staying in my collection. So it'll be a declutter and then a collection video. But anyways, first things first, these are not going into the declutter pile, but I'm going to mention them because they're going to be when I put all of my palettes away, if these are a nuisance to store, they will be going in the declutter box, and I'm going to decide if I want to keep them or not. But first up is the P. Louise Hocus Pocus Regain Focus palette, just in case you've never seen it. Oh, and quick mention, I'm not going to give makeup away to anybody that asks in the comments. I have people, friends, family to give my makeup away to, and yeah, that's what I will be doing. So anyways, that was that palette, and as you can see, it's obnoxious to open and show, and obviously it's super thick, so to store. So this is in the maybe. We're gonna see how annoying it is to store. Next up is its sister of the collection is the Droplet of Magic palette. And if you didn't see my ranking every eyeshadow palette that I tried this year video, I talked about this there, but I just said that I knew this was going to bug me with these palettes. Sorry, you can see all my lights and stuff, but anyways, there we go. I knew this was going to bug me, but I got FOMO, so then I grabbed the palettes anyway. And yeah, what I thought was going to bugged me enough that I just shouldn't have purchased them in the first place. Okay, now on to the true, what's ready, sort of ready to be decluttered in my maybe box. But I'm gonna shock all of you that have been here for a while and say the Cash Beauty Color Trip. This palette has been a favorite of mine for a couple of years, but I didn't reach for it at all this year. And I have quite a few bigger palettes that I think have a similar color story. So I don't think I need this one anymore. So, although I know you don't need any makeup, but anyways, that one's probably gonna go. This one I put into a magnetic palette with some Viseart shades, and I thought that would make me reach for this more, and I still never reached for it this year. So this is the One Up palette from Lethal. So this one is also going to go. We have Ace Beauty Ambiance, and I really like this palette, but I realized I really like it for like the matte color story. And this matte color story is essentially the same as the Bailey Sarian Fatally Yours collab that she did with Melt, and I like that one better. So I think I can part ways with that one. Ace Beauty Oceanic. This is the second time I'm going to declutter this palette. I decluttered it the first time they came out with it in a new formula. I bought it again. I used it like twice, I think, and I just never reached for this. So I don't think I need to have this one, although I really like the tones in this. These two are two that like I could maybe see me changing my mind and pulling back. Clarity Cosmetics Apocalypse palette. I did not use this palette once this year. I did enjoy it last year, but I just never reached for it this year. I will say these shimmer shades are super pretty, so that gave me some pause, but no, I have to make this collection smaller. We're going to declutter the Alter Ego Mirage solely because I have this in the Huda Beauty palette, the Empowered palette, so I don't need the same color story twice. Plus, I think I have a lot of friends and family that are going to love this, and the quality is awesome, so I want it to go somewhere where it can be used. This is the Martine Cosmetics Martine's Diner palette. I really like this palette. I love the matte color story on this, and I don't hate that the shimmers are more satiny. I think that gives like a fun like change, but I don't know. I don't don't reach for this. I don't know if I will. Sorry, I keep flashing everything at you. So yeah, although this one I'm torn on, but anyways, we're gonna Odin's Eye and Judy. This is the Red Dragon palette. I really like this. As far as like a neutral color story goes, I think this is so fun, but I think I have this in other palettes that I reach for more. But I do really like this one. You're like, okay, you really like it, but you're getting rid of it. But listen, I get to a point where my palette collection gets to a certain size and I'm so overwhelmed. I just can't. So we're also going to get rid of the Odin's Eye and Fancy Face collab. This is the Hummingbird palette. This palette is pretty. I just never really reached for this one. I don't know. This color story didn't jive with me as much, but I do think it's really pretty and it's very bright, very like tropical, which I think is fun. This is a palette that was gifted to me in PR. Oh, I should have mentioned that the Alter Ego one was also gifted in PR. But anyways, this is the Indie Beat Cosmetics, the Goblin King. I mentioned this in my ranking video. The mattes are nice. I didn't love the shimmers, and this is just not a color story that I tend to reach for a whole lot. So this one's gonna go. Yeah, I decided I don't need this. I've used it once, and I don't know, like the quality wasn't terrible. It wasn't anything amazing either. I shouldn't say that. That's mean. This shimmer I found to be disappointing, but the mattes performed well. They were the normal Glam Light, like the good Glam Light matte formula. But I don't need this. I have the Xenon palette. I like that palette a lot. I have some other cool tone palettes, and this just isn't going to get used in my collection as much as I love Scream. Yeah. This is the Be Perfect Cosmetics Gravity palette. This is a fine palette. It's just kind of like, it's boring. I got it because it was a sort of a dupe for the Mario Ethereal Eyes palette that everybody loves. And I think it's a similar color story, but for me, I have, like, if I want something that's, like, more of a basic neutral palette, I have my Natasha Denona, my Viseart, my Melt, like, any of that I can use. So, yeah, I'm good without this one. Here are the quads from the Unearthly, the first Halloween. I think it was the first mystery box that Unearthly did. This was for Halloween. I think these are so fun, but I didn't reach for them a single time this year. And I just don't think they add a lot to my collection. This is gonna be controversial, but the Odin's Eye and Angelica Nyqvist, the initial collab that they did, this is the Hella palette. It just was never my favorite. This color story is fine, like the pinks and the greens, I think it's pretty, but I didn't use this at all this year, and I don't feel like I will miss it if I get rid of it. So yeah, and I know a lot of people love it. It just was never one of my favorites personally. This is the BellaBeauteBar and Lexi Lala makeup. I should say, let me go back. It wasn't my favorite just from like a color story standpoint. It was fine quality. This is the collab that BellaBeauteBar did with Lexi Lala makeup. I liked this solely because of this shimmer here and then all of these mattes, and I thought this was such an interesting matte color story. But I think with the BellaBeauteBar Best Mattes palette that they did with Ellie Starr and Brittany Huffman, I have these colors pretty much in there, and it's in the newer, better BellaBeauteBar matte formula. So if you watch my recent ranking video, this shouldn't surprise you. This is the Chucky and Glam Light Crazy in Love palette. I don't like this. I've seen a lot of comments of people being like, wait, I like mine. And so if you're interested in this, a lot of people really like this. I just am not one of them. I found the colors to be too similar. I don't think you get as much of a variety of looks as I would like. And for me, for a monochromatic color story, it's too dark for me. So yeah. Next up is the BellaBeauteBar collab with M. Jones 5018. This is the Celestial Garden. I just don't know what to do with this palette color story wise, unless you're doing like 2 eyeshadow looks, which can be very pretty. But I think now that I've experienced the like newer, better for like matte formula from BellaBeauteBar, I feel less like I need this. So, and I don't do a ton of like cake liner looks really, so I think that's why I'm inclined to get rid of palettes that have the cake liners in them. Okay, this is the Glaminatrix Sugar and Spice. I know, I just don't think it's worth it for me to have a palette in my collection that I'm not going to reach for, that's just taking up space and overwhelming me when it comes time to like make decisions on like what palettes to use. So I think the quality on this is really nice. The shimmers are gorgeous and sparkly. The mattes worked really nice. the color story I thought would work for me, and it just does not. This is the Odin's Eye and Makeup Just for Fun Flora Story palette. This is really pretty. I think this shade Dawn is like gorgeous, and I do like the the matte green looks I created with this palette this year. I did really enjoy, but I have other palettes in a similar kind of color story that I just think I won't miss this one if it's gone. Cosmic Brushes Delicious Delights, or Cosmic Beauty, I think is what they're called now. This one is pretty. It's fine. I don't know if I'll even declutter this or just toss it, because this shade broke and got everywhere, and then it's like messed up kind of this shade down here. It's just not a color story that I find myself reaching for or wanting to reach for more and more, so I think this one can go. Last up in the declutter is going to be the BellaBeauteBar Poison Garden 2 palette. I think this is really pretty. The shade Foxglove and Water Hemlock are like two of the most gorgeous shades, but for me, let me see, let's look at Larkspur really fast. Yeah, see, this is like that's just not as good of a shimmer as they normally do. So yeah, I just think I have better palettes from them, and I don't think I'll miss this one if I get rid of it. Okay, so I have the rest of my palettes organized by like brand so that we can go through all the palettes for a brand at one time. But I have some palettes where like brands where I only have one palette from them. So I'm just going to show those first. So first up, we have the Carla Cosmetics. This is, I think, called the Romance Quad, I want to say. I can't remember the name of it. But anyways, this is the packaging. You slide it out and the little quad's in here. You don't have to keep it in the box, but I thought the box was so pretty. But here's what the quad looks like. I liked this so much that I was tempted to buy their new quad, even though I knew like it was like one black matte, which I was like, this isn't even worth it. But these two multi-chromes are some of, if not the prettiest, smoothest, creamiest shades I have in my collection. I kind of want to get the other quad, but they're like $75, which for a quad is kind of crazy, but also the quality is really nice, so I don't know. But anyways, this one's really pretty. I really like these tones on me, so as far as quads go, I do want to keep this one around. Obviously, everything else is staying. We're not decluttering, so I don't need to keep saying that. This is the Amaya Beauty Industrial 2.0. This palette is gorgeous. Let me not show you what I look like right now. This palette is gorgeous. I love it. It was one of my favorites. I don't want to spoil if you haven't watched my ranking, but it was a top one for sure for this year. This is this is from Death and Candy Custom Creations. I absolutely love the way they do these palettes. Ow. Okay, but I have just a bunch of singles in here. This is from the Pastel Roses, which I think some people said that their Pastel Roses shades were getting like really gross and smelly. This one doesn't smell bad, but it was rainbow striped, and now the entire thing's just mixed together because it's crumbled so many times and I've had to repress it. But the rest of these I think are either from palettes that I pulled them out of, or at least I think this one is from the BellaBeauteBar collab with Brittany Huffman and Ellie Starr. This one might also be from that collection, and then the other 9 are from Kristen Lee Cosmetics. But yeah, anyways, I really like to reach for this when I want just like a fun sparkly shade. Next we have the Cosmic Brushes, Cosmic Beauty, whatever they're called, Serenity palette. This was the palette that I feel like got everybody hyped on the brand, and I do really like this color story. I think it's so fun. I just think it's like a fun, interesting color story. And I think Cosmic, even though I was decluttering one of their palettes, I do think they have a really nice formula, especially at a great price. So this is a brand that, you know, I want to just remind myself what the quality is like for if they launch other palettes that I'm interested in. I have something to reference. Next up is the Alchemy palette from Jellywink Cosmetics and Makeup and Tattoo. This is what the palette looks like. I don't love these 3 shimmers right here. These are really creamy, but I'm okay. Like, and I say that as a bad thing because they crease, but I'm okay with that. But what I really love is this matte color story down here. I just think it's so fun and perfect for like the Halloween season, and I just love this packaging. Next we have Give Me Glow Bad Witch Club, and it says season fall, so I don't know when they're gonna give us new ones, but anyways, this is what the palette looks like. These shimmers are a little dark, but I love to play with this palette and add in lighter shimmers from other palettes or some of my loose pigments or flakies or whatever. I just really, really get down with this color story. And even though this palette's a couple years old now, like I still enjoy reaching for it. Next, we have the Be Perfect Carnival Interstellar palette. This is one of the collabs they've done with Stacey Marie. This palette is gigantic. Would I need very many other palettes if this was the only palette I had? No. Like, this covers a lot of bases, as we saw when I did my, if you are new here, I did a if I could only keep 10 palettes video, but then I challenged myself to spend a whole month using only 10 palettes, and this one got me by quite a bit during that time. Anyways, so we know that this palette can, you know, serve a lot of purposes. So I don't want to get rid of it. I really like it. And I actually want to play with it. I haven't played with it since I did that video because I used it so much in that month that like I just kind of forgot about it the rest of this year. But I kind of want to pull this back out. Next, we have another palette that was in that if I could only keep 10 palettes, and that was the Il Makiage and Kathleen Lights collab, the Disco Fox palette. I love this palette. I actually pulled this palette back out the other day because I just wanted like a really pretty neutral look for my sister's pinning ceremony because she graduated from nursing school. But anyways, I wanted something pretty and neutral, and I was like, you know, I haven't grabbed this one in a while. Let's use it. And oh my gosh, so pretty. I remember why I loved this one so much. This is the Wicked Widow Beauty Graveyard Smash palette. As far as palettes under 10 shades, because I've found that 10 shades is sort of my sweet spot. Palettes under 10 shades, I love this color story. I think it mixes, mashes, blends, works so well together somehow. It looks like when I first saw it, I will admit I was basically sold on the packaging, and I was like, I'll figure the color story out, no big deal. But every look I've done with this palette, I've been like, oh my gosh, that is way prettier and worked way, like blended together way better than I was expecting. Next up, we have the Laura Geller collab with Wheel of Fortune. I'm just saying this is a really, really good neutral palette. Somebody in a video I saw say that this reminded them of the Mario and Anastasia Beverly Hills collab, and I lusted after that palette for so long, so I don't know if it's actually that similar of a color story because I never got that one, but this is really good. I really like it, and it's a great neutral option. Next, we have Too Faced Italian Spritz. Technically, I have like a memory box somewhere where the Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette sits, but this is the only one that's like actively in my collection right now, and I just think this palette is so pretty. It's so fun for summer. It's gorgeous. It smells delightful. I have nothing but good things to say. Last up, we have the Gloss Gods Lavender Skies Remixed palette. This palette, I know these have some oil seepage, but those shadows were so creamy. I can't remember if this one creased on me, but this one did not. And it's one of the most beautiful eyeshadow shades I've ever put on my eye here. We'll just swatch it for you. It's so, let me see. Can we zoom in? There. Let me go like that. Can you see the shiftiness? Probably not, but it is so stunning. I don't even know how to describe it. It literally looks like a sunset in a single eyeshadow. So I will keep that palette as long as it has that shade. I will keep that palette as long as it has that shade. I think it's really nice. So yeah. Okay, so for all of the brands that I have multiple palettes for, I'm just working from the stacks that I have next to me from left to right. They're not in alphabetical order. There's no rhyme or reason to them from here on out. We're just going truly from left to right of what I can grab. So first up is Simply Posh Cosmetics. So we have the Fairy Tale Fairies palette. And I was just making sure I wasn't missing if anything was gifted in PR. But anyways, this one it was not. I paid for this with my own money. But this is the Fairy Tale Fairies palette. I think this might still be my favorite Simply Posh palette. I don't know. Oh, I'm so torn. I know that they've improved their shimmer formula since this palette, but I still really like this one. I get down with it. I love it. And this was a palette that was in my if I could only keep 10 palettes, and I really liked using it during that time. I think this is one of my most used for that time period. Anyways, this was a palette that they launched more recently. This was gifted to me in PR. This is the Cozy Cabin palette. Like, you can just see that the shininess on those shimmers is a little bit more over the top, extra sparkly, creamy, what have you. And this palette has been sitting on my vanity. Like, I keep reaching for it when I just want something quick and easy, primarily to go between one of these two columns. I just go straight down the column when I don't want to think about it. But I do really enjoy this palette. So it's a toss-up, honestly, between that and Fairy Tale Fairies. But also, this wasn't their most, did I say this was their most recent? It was relatively recent. This was their most recent launch. This is the Aurora Lights. This was also gifted to me in PR. And this one is stunning. Like, really stunning. I really like the mix of colors in here. I think it's really, really pretty. I have not a single bad thing to say about it. If I'm not going to be able to link videos of like palettes that I used in the description box, but if you search any of these palettes on my channel and I have a dedicated video, it'll pop up there. But anyways, next up is Citrus Punch. I was also gifted this one in PR. This one is really pretty. I know some people had hard pan issues with this palette. I did not. So I don't know why I'm lucky and blessed that way, but this is a really perfect palette for summer. And I could totally see me pulling this back out each summer. Next up is Berry Icy. This is what this palette looks like. This one was not gifted in PR. I did purchase this one myself. And this color story I think is so pretty. I will be honest, I stick over to like this half of the palette just because I'm not a big blue lover. But I do like the tones of the blues in here. I don't tend to reach for blues a whole lot. Last but not least is Genuine Gems. This is what the palette looks like. Absolutely gorgeous, stunning jewel tones. I think this palette is really, really pretty. I enjoy it a lot. Next up, we have Ace Beauté. So here is the Ace Beauté Tropical Vibes palette. There is just something about this like grungy green tone color story that I just really, really like and I don't want to get rid of. So I really enjoy this palette. And then of course, the Paletopoly palette is one of my favorite palettes from last year, if not my actual favorite palette. I love this color story. I love the quality on this. I just think this palette is gorgeous. I think this was also in my If I Could Only Keep 10 palettes, so lots of those coming up early. Should I redo that video? I don't know if I want to put myself back in the place of having to do the, why is my brain not working? To do the 30 days of it. But anyways, here we have Ensley Rain Cosmetics. This is the Harvest Moon palette. This is what the palette looks like. It's very pretty. The shimmers are really nice. If you like a darker, smokier eye look, I think this would work really well. If you're like me and prefer like lighter shimmers in your looks, that one is not going to be a complete palette for you. This is Strawberry Moon from Ensley Rain. This palette is so pretty, and like this shade Radiant and the shade Lunar Glow are some of the prettiest shadows I think I've used like this year. Like, they're stunning. But yeah, it's a fun color story. I like the mattes and the shimmers from Ensley Rain. I think they have good quality. Next up, we have Flower Moon. Some of my favorite shimmers in my collection exist in this palette. I think this palette is absolutely gorgeous. And then Midwinter Dream. This was a collab that they did with Brittany Huffman. I really like the shimmers in this palette as well. I think they are super, super pretty. Yeah. Next, we have Glamlight. So we have the Glamlight and Barbie Dream Summer palette. I love this palette. I think this color story is so fun. It looks like we have some oil seepage in the shimmers right there. But I can't remember when the last time I pulled this one out was, but I don't remember having issues with it. But anyways, I really, really enjoy this palette. If I want like a bright pink eye look, this is a go-to palette for that for sure. We have the Friday the 13th and Glamlight Camp Crystal Lake palette. This is the only horror palette to survive my declutter, but I really, really like this one. I think this one is good. I like the quality on the quality and color story on this one the best. Quality on Chucky was not great for me. Quality on Ghostface was good. I just didn't love that color story given what I already had. If I didn't have Natasha Denona, Xenon, or other cool tones, I think that'd be a good one also. But anyways, here's the Scooby-Doo palette that they did this year. This is such a fun color story. Perfect Scooby-Doo. I know people said they didn't like the spacing between the pans, but I don't mind it because I can see why they did it, because we have like the character. Why did I just stick my finger in there? But we have the characters in between, so that's not what bugs me. I do think these shades up here make a really solid neutral look on the side, so I think there's versatility. You could go super colorful, or you could have a standby neutral look with that one. Okay, Unearthly Cosmetics. Here we go. We have the Devour palette. This was their most recent Halloween palette. It's really pretty. It's not a standalone for me because I need slightly lighter shades for these reds, but doing like an all green look with this palette is gorgeous. These three shimmers down here, stunning, amazing, love them. Next up, we have Spaced Out. This was their palette in their small summer mystery box. The shade Shroom is one of my favorite shades from them. It's so pretty on the lid. But this is such a fun, cute little color story. Next, we have Get Groovy. This was from the large summer mystery box. Kind of a rainbow palette, but a little like just like a bright or rainbow. I don't know. This isn't technically red, so it's not quite a true rainbow, but it's still fun. Next, we have the So Strange palette that they did for, I think Halloween, was it last year? 2 years ago? I can't remember now. I think it was last year. This palette I think is really pretty. It's a very bright, very punchy color story. I wish there was a little bit more variety between those two purples, but overall I think it's a really fun color story, and I kind of want to, oh, who am I? But I kind of want to use that red in a look soon. Next, we have Warms My Blood. One of these shades, Centuries, totally dried out. But I do think the brand, if you have Warms My Blood or one of the other palettes that had a shade dry out, if you ask them for a replacement, they'll send it. I emailed them and then they said, yeah, can you send us a picture? And then I forgot to do it. And then by the time I was going to respond, I was like, oh my God, it's been like 2 months and whatever. I don't care that much. So it's not a shade that like makes or breaks this palette for me. So I don't really care. But the rest of the palette I think is really fun. These shimmers are so special, so pretty. I really like it. Again, wish there was a tiny bit more variety between those two purples. But overall, I think it's a really fun color story that you can go neutral, or you can go neutral with some purple, neutral with some red, and kind of mix and match. I think it's a good one for that. Next, we have the Weirdos. I think this was the palette that has the other dry shade. Yep. So that was the shade that was like one of the multi-chromes that dried out up at the top. But yeah, I think this palette's really pretty. I really like it. I like this kind of a color story. I don't know why, but I think I have it a few times over. But I really, of course, had to keep, as one of the few lucky ones that got that kind of packaging. Like, those are never going to leave my collection, probably. Next up, we have 1964. This just happens to be my favorite out of that, and I'm really surprised because I almost didn't buy this one because I liked it because it's the Munster, so part of me still wanted it, but I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that color story, but I was going to buy the other one, so I was like, might as well buy all of them. I find that I end up liking the looks I do with this palette the best. So something about this color story and I work the best. So there we go. We work the best together. This is the Surrender palette. This is from their Valentine's Day mystery box that they did this year. I love this palette. I think it's a gorgeous, mostly neutral with like a pop of purple, a pop of bright pink to it, but it is a really, really good palette. Then we have the Fall Magic palette. I love and adore this palette. This is the pink and green color story that I could see myself reaching for a little bit more, with the greens being like a little bit darker, a little bit murkier and grungier compared to the Hella palette. And to me, I was like, if I have one pink and green palette that I feel like I'm obsessed with, do I need another one? But I really, 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 really like this one. And I think this is remastered. They had a different Fall Magic. This is the new one. Anyways, I am devastated. I was carrying these palettes over here and I dropped one of my Esom palettes and then it fell like direct. It was a direct hit. So now there's a whole rip in the packaging for Sorceress Smoke. So I'm a little bit sad about that, but all the shadows look fine, so whatever. But this is what the palette looks like. Definitely on the neutral side, but still really pretty and so sparkly. Like, these shades feel holographic with how sparkly they are. I don't know if they actually are, but they feel like it. Okay, Adept Cosmetics time. So we have their most recent palette. This is the Element 115. This palette is so beautiful. Yeah, this color story just speaks to my soul. I think I've mentioned before that I love anything space themed. I know I've mentioned that before. I love anything space themed. So yeah, I can definitely get down with this palette. Next, we have the Adept and Heather Austin collab. I will be honest, I debated decluttering this one just because I don't love the mattes, but the shimmers in this are so nice that I couldn't do it. But I do think this palette is really, really pretty. I like it a lot. Next, we have the Plain Jane Remastered palette. I think this is really, really pretty. I do feel like some of the shimmer shades are a little bit more similar than I would prefer now that I've been more critical of my palettes, but I do really like the shades in here, and I think this is always a fun palette to pair with like an all matte palette or pair with some of my matte palettes. This is the Arrow Inspired palette. This palette is really pretty. Yeah, it's really pretty. I like greens. I don't reach for greens as much, but I think if I paired this palette with some of my other green palettes, it would be perfect. I don't love the mattes down here, but I do love the like this shade and this shade and this shade. Like these three over here are some of my favorites. So I do think it's really gorgeous. Then we have Ninhydrin. This palette, I really like this one. I think it's really pretty. I think it's funny because Adept has definitely leveled up their game, and I thought they were like knocking it out of the park at this time. So it's just really funny to like look at these now and be like, oh yeah, this is nice, but like compared to some of their other newer stuff, like their newer stuff is better for sure, but I do still really like this one. Then we have Minka. I am surprised by myself, but I end up reaching for this palette way more often than the other ones, but there's something about these like sparkly silvers and golds up top that just have me coming back for more. I especially like to combine this palette with what is shockingly is my Natasha Denona bronze palette. There's something about these two together that just works. And then we have the Sumerian Sunset palette. This is based on a drink from Star Trek, and I love this. I love Star Trek. I do really like this palette. I will say that I think Obsidian Order, and I can't remember if it's I think it's Obsidian Order and Praxis maybe, look a little similar on the lid. And then Pack Lead creased really bad on me. So there's like two shades that I wish I could switch out, but honestly, the other shades are so good and look so pretty on the lid that I don't even care. And I really like the mattes in here, and I think they blend and create, like, you get nice, like, you either get a nice green color story or a nice red color story. I think they work really nicely together. Next up, we have the Huda Beauty palettes. I just have the plastic ones, and I feel like I've just decided I'm low-key collecting these at this point. But anyways, we have the Empowered palette. This is why I can get rid of Alter Ego Mirage. I do really like this palette. I like this color story. I think it's fun. It goes more orange than I think I expect. Every time I go into it, even if I use these shades over here, it somehow ends up, I think because I start with maybe one of these, I don't know, it always ends up leaning a little bit warmer, a little bit more orange, but I still like it. This is the Naughty Nude palette. This palette is so pretty. I've been enjoying reaching for this one. I actually got it for Christmas last year, so I was late to the game on this one, but man, I really like it. Then we have the Pretty Grunge. This was the new one that they just did this year. This palette is stunning. The shade Rebel, gorgeous, love it. Yeah, big fan of that one. We have Rose Quartz. This is one of my favorites. I just love these like bluey duochrome shades. I don't know. And I like a lighter matte color story sometimes too. I just think this one's stunning. I really like it. Then we have Mercury Retrograde, which is far and away my favorite. You can tell how long I've had this one. The letters have chipping off. But yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite palettes. I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but I have pretty decent sized dips in these two shades. Yeah, there's like, I don't know if you can see it if I tilt it like that. Yeah, anyways, there's dips in here. I've used this one quite a bit. It was one of my favorite palettes for a while. Next up is Odin's Eye. So let's talk about the Merry Christmas palette. I love this palette. I'm going to use this palette on Christmas Day. I haven't decided what kind of look I'm going to do, but I'm excited. This palette is gorgeous. I need to get better about using it. Okay, here's what happened. When these launched, everybody wanted them, and then not everybody could get them because they sold out so quickly, and then the brand didn't restock it, and so people were mad. And so I just felt uncomfy like using this on social media when there was so many people that like wanted it and didn't get it. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to upset anyone. But now they restocked it. Now, did it sell back out? Yes. Oh my gosh, how did I just notice that there's like light like ornament in the background of the packaging? I don't know if you guys can see that. Do you see how it's lighting? Like, right. How did I never notice that till right now? Okay, anyways. Now that more people had the opportunity to get it, I think I need to be better about reaching for this more than just like on Christmas and Christmas Eve. Because that's what I used it on Christmas and Christmas Eve last year, and I'm doing the same thing this year. But anyways, here is the Christmas Eve palette. Absolutely stunning. Gosh, it's so pretty. Both of them, really pretty. Then we have the Sea Talk palette that they did with Lauren May. I debated decluttering this one. I did, but I need to keep it just solely for the fact that it has this satin electric kelp that I use somewhat frequently in the inner corner. I was almost going to declutter it because the rest of the shimmer shades that I like, I have in other palettes, but I don't have that. So it needs to stay. Then we have the collab they did with Betty Jean. This is the Planet Spirit palette. I don't have mattes that are as neon as this. Like, I have mattes that look bright in other palettes. They're not nearly as like highlighter bright as this one, and I love it. Then of course my girl Annette, her collab with Odin's Eye. This is the Giant Wolves palette. This is one of my favorite color stories that they've ever done, and I love Annette, so I'm never gonna get rid of this one, but I really, really like this palette. We moved slightly because my feet and legs were falling asleep. Let's do BellaBeauteBar next, just because they're... Okay, hopefully that didn't mess up the mic. I'm scared. Anyways, we're doing BellaBeauteBar next because they're right in front of me. So this is another Death and Candy custom creations. Oh look, it's another like space themed one that I got from her too. But anyways, this is where I put my Make Your Own Magic singles plus 2 of the singles from the collab they did with Brittany Huffman and Ellie Starr. Those 2 are down here. This is like a random green shade from I don't know what, but then the rest of this is the Make Your Own Magic bundle of singles that they did. And these are really, really pretty. Some of them are really flaky and messy, but the like, I think these are the holochromes. Oh my gosh. So pretty. Next we have Miss Strange and Unusual. This palette I love. The shade Afterlife remains one of my favorite palettes in my collection. I just think this is super stunning. Then we have the collab that they did with Brittany Huffman. This is one of my favorite palettes of all time. Like, I seriously love this color story. It's so, so good. It's so good. I love it. Then we have Recently De-Influenced. This is one of the palettes they did this year, and this palette is good too. Like, BellaBeauteBar is like freaking killing it right now. None of these were gifted in PR, but I do have an affiliate code. I guess you probably saw my affiliate code at the bottom of the screen for Simply Posh and Ensley Rain at this point. So I don't know why I'm gonna try and explain myself now. But anyways, Basic Witch. Here is this one. I love this shade down here. And I mentioned this in my ranking video, but sometimes I did a like when I just needed a 2 and done look, I reached for Grimoire and Incantation one time, and it was so pretty. And any palette where I can just get a quick and easy, like, don't think about it, somewhat neutral look, plus have fun with colors, like, I just think that's like that's where I really like a palette, because it gives me more versatility. And also thank you to my friend on Instagram that helped me think of the word versatility because I couldn't think of it the other day. Anyways, this is the BellaBeauteBar. I don't know why I said that because we're in that same section, but this is the Star-Crossed Lovers. I really like the color story on this one. I don't know. There's something about this one that just... I like purples. It's not just... I don't want to sit here and pretend like, well, I don't know why I like this one so much. Yeah, it's because it's purple. Here's the Pastel Garden palette. I was gifted this particular palette in PR, actually. This is the Perfect Pastel palette, and this is always my go-to for like a pastel inner corner, if I want to add a pastel shade or if I need something just lighter to help blend something out. This is my go-to palette for that. It is perfect for that specifically. This is the Smoky Glam palette. This is such a good like neutral / neutral adjacent palette because obviously you have some purples and greens in here. But man, this one, this is really good. I like this one a lot. Then we have the Sun and the Sea palette. I broke this shade, but I think I repressed it okay. But anyways, this is what this palette looks like. The shimmer shades in here are absolutely stunning. Then we have Miss Angles of Illumination 3. This was another palette that I think was in the If I Could Only Keep 10 palettes from last year, or the beginning of this year. And I almost decluttered it because I was like, man, do I really reach for all shimmer palettes? But Cassiopeia, that shade, saved this entire palette. Then we have the Ellie Starr and Brittany Huffman collab that they did with the brand. This is the Best Mattes palette. Here it is in its like original layout. I really want to finish my review of this one so I can change the layout up, and I think I'll end up reaching for this a whole lot more, but yeah. Oh, all right. I hope you are all ready for a very lengthy discussion about Melt, because I have 22 Melt eyeshadow palettes. First up, we have Miss Radioactive. This palette has mattes and then like satiny shades, and I really like it. I don't know, it's really fun. I love when I want a bright poppy color, I reach for either this one or that Planet Spirit palette from Odin's Eye, but I still like that one. This is Smoke Sessions, and this one's really pretty. I do like the shimmers in this one. I do need to pull in other mattes to like make this like a completed palette for me. But I do like the shimmers in here. I think they're pretty. Then we have She's in Parties. This is one of my top palettes the year that it launched. I love this one. I do. And I used the shade Skeleton Kiss as a highlight like so often. Anytime I use this palette, that was my highlight. I do really enjoy this palette as well. You can see how messy it is. Then another sad, like something happened on this where this got, I don't remember how it got dinged up, but sad day. But anyways, this is the Brunette palette. This is one of my favorite neutral palettes that Melt has. I don't know what it is about this one, but I think it's the shade Musk. In the tones of this, I don't know, there's something about this one that's really good. Then we have Blueprint. This blue matte is not my favorite, but I do like the shimmers in this palette, and I do like pairing this palette with some other palettes, but yeah, it's fun. I'm basically a Melt collector to a certain extent. I'll talk about which ones I don't have and why, but anyways, this is the Impulsive palette, right? Yeah, Impulsive. I still have the plastic so that we're not getting, shimmers into matte shades over here, but this palette, I bought this. Okay, when I decided I wanted to collect Melt, this was one of the few palettes of theirs that I didn't have, but they didn't sell it anymore. And I bought this off of somebody on like Poshmark or something, like new in the box, never used. So I was like expecting it to not be that great, but this shade Pop in Bottles is like low-key really good. So yeah, I really liked this one. It's a little thick, but I still like it. Then we have their collab with Beetlejuice. This is the Waiting Room palette. They had these fun inserts that I kept in here. Oops. So here's what the palette looks like. It's not my favorite, but it was their first collab, and I love Beetlejuice, so same with this one. I do like the purple and like the grungy green. I just wish the purples there was more of a variety, and then maybe like this one up here like slightly darker. I don't know, it's just for smaller pans like color stories, like I think we just need a little more variety in those two. But this is the Amore y Mariposas palette, and I will say this right now, this is the only circle pan palette of theirs that I have. I got rid of the dark or bad side Zodiac and then the dark matter palette because the circle pans don't feel like Melt to me, and I just didn't really like those enough. And so the rest of this, I'm like, I still feel like I have a Melt collection, but I don't need to have those too. So anyways, this is one of my favorites from them. I think this palette is so underrated. It is so good. Okay, next up we have Mary Jane. A lot of people hated this palette. I was not one of them. I thought the different textures on the shimmers were really fun, and I really like the matte color story on this one. I think it's really nice. Next we have Rust, and here is what she looks like. I don't think I've reached for this one in a minute, but I might pull my Melt palettes back out. I did a Melt ranking a while ago and then used each Melt palette once to create looks and did like a battle. But that was like not last year. I didn't do it this year. I think I did it in 2022. But anyways, maybe I should do it again. But this is 27. I don't like the shimmers in this palette, but I really like the matte color story. I wish there was it went a little bit lighter and a little bit darker. It stays kind of mid-tone, but it's still pretty. This is Vita. This is another good one. I really like these three neutrals, like the tones of these three neutrals right in the middle. And then it's fun to like be able to pull in, go either direction to pull in like a pop of color. So I do enjoy that. Then we have Miss Muerte. This is such a good palette. I love this. I think we can make a complaint that these two shades are kind of similar, and it might have been fun to have like a slightly different shade in here, but overall, still really like this palette. Millennial Pinks is probably my least favorite palette from them, and I think it's because it's kind of shimmer heavy and their shimmers aren't my favorite. Plus, I feel like we have such a big drop from Modern Love to GF, like that I don't really know what to do with that, and I need something like a slightly lighter gray for that to work. But I still really like this overall. Like I say, it's my least favorite, but I love all of my Melt palettes. So here is Gemini. As you can see, original packaging. This one is a great one. I love this palette. Then we have 420, another controversial palette because people didn't love the performance of the mattes on this. I will say the mattes require some finessing. At least these over here, the greens, I think require some finessing. I think the rest of it works really no problem. But if you're willing to put in the effort, I think these tones are super interesting. We have one of their new palettes. This is the Fatally Yours, the collab they did with Bailey Sarian, and it is a grungy Dream. I will say these two shades look a lot more similar like on the skin for me than they do in the pan. So I wish this shade Phosgene was like a slightly lighter, but overall, perfect grungy color story. Gemini 2. This is a really good one. I love these tones down here. I am such a fan of this palette. I love pairing this palette with some of my special shades. It just performs so well. Then we have Electrip. This palette I like, but I do feel like I get kind of a similar like look every time I do it. So I don't know if it's a me thing or if I need to combine this with something else to marry it and make it like just work out better for me, but yeah. And then here we go. We have their 2 Nightmare Before Christmas collabs they did. So first up we have Halloween Town. This is such a fun, perfect Halloween color story. And then we have the Christmas Town. And this is also a fun color story, especially Christmas. I mean, you have reds and greens, so it's still Christmas, but I think these are the best shimmers they've ever done and are in this palette. I think they are gorgeous. So yeah, those are all the milk ones. Okay, keeping it moving. Let's talk Natasha Denona. So this is the mini nude palette. And while I don't, like, I have this color story multiple times over, I love traveling with this palette. Like, this is perfect for traveling. Although we had a chunk come out of here, so maybe not so perfect for traveling anymore. But this is, I really like this. And this, I like this so much that it makes me tempted to get her other minis, but I know that I'm not going to use them that much. But anyways, here is the bronze palette. This palette is like I don't know how old it is. To me, like in general, I don't remember when it launched, but I think for me, I've had this since at least 2019, 2020 possibly? 2019 or 2020. I moved to my new house in 2020 and I've had it since before then because I remember having it at my old house. So 2019 or 2020. So I've either had it 3 or 4 years. I still reached for this 3 different times this year. Like I don't know. I just keep coming back to that one. This is the I Need a Nude palette. This is one of the ones that she launched this year. It is so freaking gorgeous and stunning, and I love it. It's perfect. I love those tones of nudes. This is the Xenon palette, another one that she launched this year. I think this one is really pretty. It's definitely a grayscale palette. Personally, I like it better than the color story on the Ghostface one. I thought the Ghostface one was going to be a little bit more versatile, but it's really not. And so I like the shimmers in this one better. Then we have the Yucca palette. This is definitely one of my faves from her. This also launched this year. It is absolutely freaking gorgeous and stunning and perfect and all the nice things that I can say about it. Then we have the Sunrise palette. This is what this palette looks like. This is another one that like I would think that I wouldn't like, but every time I want like a warm tone look and I reach for this palette to do it, it just looks so nice. You know, like I think that factors into, for me, like if every time I do a look with a palette, it just looks good, that makes me like the palette more, which I think makes logical sense now that I've said that out loud. But if I do a look with a palette, like I could do 3 looks with a palette and let's say I don't like one look, that palette has now fallen down in my eyes because I'm like, man, it's all right. Anyways. This is the retro palette, and this one is really, really pretty. I love the purple tones in this. Then we have the Glam palette, and this is one that when I just want to look good and sultry and like just feel good, this is my go-to for that. It's just such a good palette for that. This is the Love palette. This one's really pretty. You know, as time has gone on, this is one of her older ones, so I don't think these shimmers perform as well. Not that they don't perform as well as when they first launched, but like with the standards of shimmers now, it doesn't quite hold up. But I do like to pair this palette with some of my special individual shadows, and it still works nice for that. Then we have My Dream. I don't find myself reaching for this one that often, which is strange. It's essentially the same color story as Empowered, so maybe that's why. This is the Retro Glam palette. I also don't reach for this one that often, but I kind of know why. It's like just very light, but this palette, like with these green shimmers, is why I feel okay getting rid of the Flora Story palette. And when I want to do like a lighter one, like 2 and done look, these 2 shades down here are really good for that. And then the only big one I have from her now is the Trio Chrome palette. And yeah, she's pretty. I just really like this color story. I think it's really nice. I know these shimmers aren't quite up to snuff of like indie shimmers, but I don't mind. I think it's really pretty. I wonder if this palette and the Heather Austin palette would be like a match made in heaven, like between the mattes and the shimmers. I'm making a list of palettes that I think would pair really nicely together, and I might do some like a video with that, or a video series with that, and I think I might combine those two. I have to remember that, Trio Chrome and Heather Austin. Actually, I'm going to write it down now before I forget. Next up, let's chat through these Esom Cosmetics palettes. So these are called the Artistry palette, but then they each have a different name. So this is the Artistry palette -- 1 Balance eyeshadow palette. This is what it looks like. It's all matte. If you haven't seen anything that I've posted with these before, you can, they're meant for makeup artists, but you can slide these in, they lock into place, and then yeah, you just like hold it as that, then you push it out like that, and then oops, I was gonna do that backwards. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, and then we have the Intensity. So this is the number 2, the Intensity palette. This is the all shimmer palette to go with the all matte palette. I guess I shouldn't have put this one away yet. So if you, oops, just dug my finger in, did it again. Okay, if you look at these, they basically create a look straight up and down the rows. If you didn't want to think, if you're like, let me just, they're makeup artists who have already put this together for me, but I also love mixing and matching these. And I also think this palette works really nice if you want to do just like shimmer shades alone and fluff them into your crease. It is capable of doing that, which I love. I love to mix it up, you know, sometimes I don't need mattes all the time, but yeah, it's a good one. And then last up is the number 4 Elevate, and I don't know what happened to number 3. There is no number 3, unless there is and I don't know about it. Somebody let me know in the comments if you know what happened to number 3. But anyways, here's number 4. Unless, do you think number 3 is going to be like the matte, like the colorful mattes to go with this? Kind of like, because this is number 1. So number 2 and 4 are shimmers, and is number 3 going to be the colorful mattes? Interesting. But anyways, this is what the palette looks like. Super pretty. You have the monochromatic columns, and then you have a different formula in these columns, so that they kind of work well and layer well with each other, which I really like. These palettes are expensive, but I got them on a bundle deal, and I appreciate any brand that does like an actual sale for Black Friday. I got these 3 palettes in a bundle deal plus 20% off, and they were essentially the cost of one of the shimmer palettes. So that feels like an actual deal to me, like that's worth it. Anyways, next up, let's talk through Lethal. So we have the Lethal is Dead palette. This is the first collab they did with Teresa is Dead. I think this is so cute. I love Teresa, so probably never gonna get rid of this. Teresa is Lethal. I told you guys I like space, so it has a little UFO on here. And this was the second collab they did, and this is the color story. I think these two probably pair really nicely together. Maybe I should add them to my list of palettes as well to do like a look just combining them. That might be fun. Okay, anyways. Then this is actually the Nightflower palette, but again, it's another Death and Candy Custom Creations palette, and I moved the shades into this palette just because I bought this thinking my square singles would fit, but they are too small for it. So then I was like, I don't have any square singles that fit, but this palette fit, and I didn't want to waste this beautiful packaging. So here we go. That's Nightflower. And then we have Wildflower. That's still in her original packaging. But there, that is what that palette looks like. Oh, it is so pretty. These two shimmers right here. So stunning. I knocked my tripod over while I was grabbing these Nomad palettes. But anyways, we have the Nomad Cosmetics Royal Europe palette. This one was gifted to me in PR. This palette is super pretty. The multi-chromes down here are stunning. Like, they are seriously so gorgeous. I do wish we had some lighter mattes. These stay pretty mid-tone to deep, and that's just not my jam. So I prefer something that goes a little bit lighter and has a little bit more variety to it, but I do think the multi-chromes in this palette far and away make it worth it, for sure. Then we have the Hudson Valley palette. This palette is so fun and so pretty, and even though I don't love red eyeshadow, I feel like I love the rest of these shades enough to overcome that there is a red in here. I do think the neutrals on like in this column right here make a really pretty neutral look. This is Haunted Europe. I'm trying to show off the the lenticular packaging. I don't know if you can see. We're like losing. Hold on. Is that, you can kind of see it. There we go. So we have her. There we go. Okay. Okay, so here is the palette. This is another really pretty one. I really love the greens in here. I think they're so nice. But yeah, I really like the quality on that one too. I don't think I have a quality issue with any of my Nomad palettes, actually, now that I think about it. It's really just color story preferences. This is the Okavango Safari palette. Absolutely gorgeous and stunning. Similar to Natasha Denona Yucca, like maybe don't need both, but I'm okay with having both. I think there is an opportunity for some differences in them. This is the Iceland Fire and Ice palette. These shimmers over here are so pretty. And then I love the, I don't know what this shade Odin, it's like a green gray. I don't know. There's something about that tone that I'm like, oh, gorgeous. And then we have Ghost Town USA with the lenticular packaging again. There we go. Oop, oop, oop. Okay. This palette is stunningly beautiful. I love it. It's gorgeous. The end. Okay. Then we have America's Parks. So pretty. So lovely. Then we have Paradise Islands. This one's a little bit light, so like color story wise, it's not my favorite, but it's fun. Whenever I want like a bright light look, I like it. And then this is the Monteverde Cloud Forest. Initially, I did have issues with this palette because I was like, it's green with like some pops of neon, which is still true. But I do feel like I have done looks with this palette this year that made me go, okay, I like this a little bit better than I thought I did. This is Fête de Provence. Gorgeous, stunning, beautiful, love everything about it. Okay, and then we have the Verona Amore y Morte, or the Love and Death palette. This palette I adore. I think it's so good. Could there have been more variety in these mattes over here? Yeah, but I just love this side with the ability to add some of these pinks and reds in. I don't know. There's something about this one that I really like. And I like the theming. I think overall, I don't know. It's just the whole, like all the thought that went into it. There's just something about it. Okay, let's talk Kaleidos, whatever. This is the Flower Punk palette. I debated decluttering this palette, but I'm just not quite ready to give up on Kaleidos as a brand altogether yet. So yeah, and I really liked this palette when it first launched, and I loved the looks I did. I think they all turned out so pretty. I love the tones and everything, but I have these tones in other palettes, so I don't know. And then we have the Club Nebula palette. This was their collab with Angelica Nyqvist. I love this palette. I do. I did not reach for it this year, but I kind of want to pull it back out because I remember absolutely adoring this color story and feeling so inspired by it. So yeah. Next up we have Shroud. So this is in the wrong spot. Next up we have Shroud Cosmetics. Okay, so here we go. This is Peaches and Dreams. This is the new one of the new ones that they launched this year. This is the only new one that I got this year. The shade Succulent is beautiful. The shimmer shades in this palette are gorgeous. I need to find a palette to marry this palette to, because there's this matte color story doesn't quite do it for me, but I'm wondering which palette would this work nicely with. I don't know. Then we have It's Freakin' Bats and Halloween. These are the two collabs they did with Betty Jean. This one I love. I think it's such a gorgeous color story. I love the shimmers in here. It's just pretty. It's a really good one. Okay, this is the Halloween palette. This palette, the mattes are a little dark for me, but I really like the shimmers, and I do think it's still a fun color story. And yeah, I think these are really pretty shimmers. Would these palettes pair nicely together? I feel like they would, right? Like, because you could pull in the lighter purples for that shade, and then you got some greens. Maybe we marry these. We can marry these. See who has the strongest relationship. Those two are the two lethal ones from Teresa is Dead. Okay, next, Gourmand Girls. And basically it's Gourmand Girls and Doodles by the Bunny 3 times. So first up we have the Silent Night. This might be one of my like newest obsessions. I honorably mentioned this because I hadn't used it yet when I filmed my ranking. I used it the next day And when I tell you that I felt like people could mistake what I had on my eyes for Pat McGrath, I'm dead serious. The shade Peace is the prettiest duochrome to pair with the neutrals. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And then the neutral, oh gosh, I knocked my camera. Okay, I'm too excited. The neutral mattes just blended out so beautifully. My one wish is that these two blue mattes were slightly more different. Like I wish one of these was lighter. And then my other wish is these two blue shimmers aren't that similar, but they're kind of similar. So they could have been a little bit more different. But anyways, that's just me being really nitpicky. I really like that palette overall. Next up, we have Nightshade. This palette is a purple green grungy goodness. I love this yellow shimmer. It's so stunning. But yeah, Hypnotic's actually a really nice shade too. There's a lot of nice shades in here. And then Haunted. This is my favorite, I think, of their palettes. Oh, look at those shimmers right there. Are they not so beautiful? I just think I get along with this matte color story the best. Although I really like the neutrals in Silent Night, so I don't know. These two greens I wish had a little bit more variety. These yellows, I don't know if we needed both, but there is a definite difference between the two, so I'm not going to complain about those as much, but I wish there was just a slight difference in those greens. But otherwise, really, really like this one. The brand that I have the most palettes for is Viseart. Oh my gosh. And I had one of my subscribers that is from France send me a DM on Instagram this morning pronouncing it Petit Four. I think that's how I said it. Let me know if I said that correctly. But actually don't. No, don't. Only if you're the person. I don't want to name her in case she doesn't want to be revealed. But if you are the person who sent me the audio, let me know if I was closer that time. But if you're not her, I don't want to hear it. Sorry. She is from France, and she is the only one whose opinion on my pronunciation am I going to trust. So we have the newest of these from Viseart that just arrived actually yesterday. Yeah, this is the Tyrian. This is what it looks like. And listen, I need to stop buying quads because I don't really like quads, but I couldn't resist this one. This just looked so sparkly to me. I haven't even swatched it yet. It actually feels... It feels really sparkly and gritty. I haven't even swatched it yet until right now. Oh, yeah. See, I knew it. When I saw pictures, I was like, that looks more sparkly than they typically do. So, okay, I'm excited. So that was Tyrian. And then we have Praline Epice. I should have asked her how to pronounce this too. Okay, this is this one. It is boring and neutral and basic, but for some reason, whenever I use one of these from Viseart that is boring and neutral and basic, it always ends up being one of my favorites. So I was like, whatever, I'm buying the other one, might as well get that one. So here we are. And then we have the Lavande, I think. I don't think they would have pronounced the E. But this is the purple one. Super pretty. These are just so cute. I don't like quads, but these are just so tiny and precious that I just can't stop buying them. But then I remember that they're $25 a pop, and I should probably stop buying them. But anyways, here's Lila Deux. We have Sakura Lotus. And yes, I keep them in the boxes because that's where the shade names are. This is Amelie. See... boring and basic, but ask me how many times I've actually ended up using this year. I think twice, which doesn't feel like a lot, but when you have a collection as big as mine, reaching for something twice that's not brand new is a feat. This is Violetta. And the rest of these I had in a magnetic palette. I put all of my Petit Four in a magnetic palette, and I never reached for them. Amelie was actually the one that I didn't have enough room for in the magnetic palette, and what do you know, that's the one I reached for, so that says something. This is Water Lotus. I think this might be my favorite out of all of them. It's so pretty. The tones on this, the shimmers, everything I love. Then we have Rosea Lotus. This is another boring basic one that I used actually a couple times. And then we have Pistache, which is just another cute green one. Okay, so those are all the Petit Fours. Petit Fours. Petit Fours. Okay, and then I think we would have the Petit Pros are going to be our next ones. Okay, so we have Soleil. I'm so sad that I get these so dirty. But anyways, because the packaging is so cute. Here's Soleil. Absolutely stunning. I really love the shimmer, that purple shimmer in the corner. Shocking none of you. And you can create such a good sunset crease with this tiny little guy. And then Shoo Shoo. Another one with adorable packaging. The bubblegum pinks I love. I love this shimmer in the corner. Absolutely gorgeous. It's so fun, especially for summer. Solstice, another really pretty one. Gorgeous shimmer. I brought this on my trip to Greece for my honeymoon last year, and this was my absolute favorite palette to reach for. Like, I really love the crease that these mattes create. I don't know, something about those tones. I'm sad because this box is breaking and I need to like glue it back together. Because again, I like to keep these in the boxes. This is the Trois. There we go. Another gorgeous one. These are also very tiny and cute, and I'm obsessed with them too. This is the Paris Etoile. And then look at that little skyline. Oh my gosh, tell me that's not the cutest thing you've ever seen. You can't. Because you can't tell me it's not the cutest thing you've ever seen. Anyways, this one's really gorgeous and really good for like a smoky look. I like it. The San Francisco, again, adorable. There's that one. This one's really pretty. I think this might, of the etoiles, this might be my etoiles. I'm trying. This might be my favorite of those color stories. I think this one's really pretty. These were also in a magnetic palette that I just found myself not reaching for. I think if I have them in their separate little packagings, I'll be more inclined to grab them. However, if anybody ever comes over and asks me to do their makeup, I'll ask them for a color story, and I always do a build your own palette with my Busy Art shades to do somebody else's makeup. It's my favorite thing to do. But anyways, this is the London one. Okay, now we have the I think these are like the petite, but do you say, is it still, does it make a difference if there's the ES at the end? I don't know. Anyways, so we have this size, I don't know, the edits, I guess, I think is what they're called. Anyway, so here's the dark edit. I will never not mention this when I talk about this palette because I'm still mad about it. But this palette I wanted for so long, and it was sold out for so long. So I finally caved and bought it off of, I think, Poshmark or Mercari or something. And it was new, but without the box. And I was like, whatever, I'm going to buy it. I kid you not, I bought it. It shipped. I got it. 4 days later, they restocked it on their site, and I paid, I think it was without the box, so I think it was slightly cheaper, but I would have rather paid a little bit more and have the box so I have the shade names, but you live and you learn. Anyways, this is the Petite Shimmer Koi. This is one of the new ones that they launched this year. It's an all shimmer one. Super pretty. Love using their shimmers as in like an all shimmer look. I think they have one of the easier formulas to do that with. We have Editorial Brights here. This is a good one to like pair with some of my all shimmer palettes for sure. Then we have the Cool Mattes, or Mattes Cool, whatever. Also very pretty. Good classic one. One of my favorite palettes, I think, from Busy Art right here. Paris Edit. That's such a beautiful color story. I love this one. I really, really like that one. And then we have the Mattes Dark. Also very pretty. Probably have similar shades in this one with the Bailey Sarian and Melt collab. But yeah, you know, I still like both. I like to be able to do the build your own palettes with Busy Art, so that's why I am okay combining or keeping some of these even if I don't reach for them. Okay, here we go, the Étendues. So we have Cashmere up first. I love the packaging on this one, it's so fun. Okay, this is also a really good neutral, like just glam palette, you know, when you want to look sultry and pretty, and yeah, it's just a good one. Then we have the Le Marais. Le Marais. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to pronounce things correctly, but I know I'm not. This one, I really like the shimmer up here. I do think like the mattes, like the brown mattes are a little similar for just like if we're using this as a standalone. So I don't reach for this one as much, but I do think there's pretty shades in here that add to the Étendue collection that I have going. Then we have Soleil La Plage. The packaging on this is that not the cutest thing you've ever seen? Here's this one. I really like this one. This one's really fun in the summer. Such a cool and cute color story. Would you all be interested in a Viseart ranking? And then a palette battle of all, what is it? I think I have 29. Ugh, goodness. Okay. And I think I had 29. Is that including the two new ones? 20, I think 29 is including the two new ones, but I don't know. Here is Bijouette, one of my favorites. Packaging and just in general, one of my favorite Étendues. I love this one so much. It has the Art Deco packaging. Oh, this is gorgeous. So gorgeous. This is one of the first palettes I bought from them, and it started my obsession with them. So then we have Violette Vespertine. Here we go. Just like a purpley, mauvey, smoky color story. And it is the sister of Violette. I think these two palettes would pair so nicely together. Here's another one with cute packaging. This is Violette. So see, it's also purple, but lighter, not quite as smoky, and then has more pops of like bright shimmers. Then we have the Coyish Étendue. This one is all shimmers as well. These are really, really pretty. Again, for if you want to do like an all shimmer look. Are these on the level of like indie shimmers? No, they're not, but they also don't enhance texture. So if you're somebody who's like, I can't get into indie shimmers because they're always adding texture to my lid, and I don't like that. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the sparkle fallout, blah, blah, blah. You might like these. But yeah, if you like really shiny, really intense shimmers like the indie ones, these aren't quite that, but I think they bring like an elegance to them. I don't know how to explain it, but this is the Cashmere Charmeuse. This is another one that they just launched. So pretty. And I think that was it. That was all the Viseart ones. Woohoo! I'm going to take a break. We have 3 brands left. We are almost done. Denona, we have the Groundwork palette. This is an all matte, either cream to matte or cream to powder or powder finish all matte palette. I love and adore this. I talked about it a lot in my ranking video, so I'm not going to be redundant here. But this is the Lightwork Volume 3. As you can see, I really enjoyed that highlighter shade. Since getting the Blend Bunny Noctilucent and the BellaBeauteBar Oracle Chrome, I don't reach for these highlights as quite as much. And then I really want to like these cream ones, but they crease on me so badly. So I keep trying them, but then they crease. So anyways, of the Lightworks, this one is not my favorite, but it started my obsession with the Lightwork, so we still love her. Okay, let's do this in order so that it makes sense. This is the Lightwork Volume 4. This is my favorite of the Lightworks. I love this one. I love the pressed flakes. I love all of the different formulas in here. I particularly like this one, but I think I lost my... I think I thought I was going to remember what these formulas were, but I lost what these two were. Anyways, I adore this one. I think this is such a good palette. I know it wasn't everybody's favorite because they didn't like all of those big 4 pans in the middle, but I did. Then we have Lightwork 5. I like this one. See, look, I was smart and I kept this so that I would remember what the different formulas were. But anyways, I like this one. I just think I like Lightwork 4 better, so I was a little bit disappointed, but I do think this one's really pretty. And if you don't have a ton of indie shades, I think you'll find shades in here that you probably don't have in your collection, like if you just shop mainstream or like what's at Ulta or Sephora. But if you have a lot of indie, I don't know that this adds a lot, if that makes sense, but I do still really like it. Next, we have Lunar Beauty. This was the palette that I accidentally showed earlier because it was in the shroud pile for some reason. Again, this is a Death and Candy Custom Creations one, but I moved the 12 Days of Lunar palette. This was the advent calendar palette that they did in 2022, I think, for holiday. I loved the concept. I did not love that this color story didn't match that packaging. I found that it made me like not reach for that palette that often. Since moving it to this, I have used it a lot more, especially as like a go-to neutral palette. So I think I'm glad I did that. But anyways, yeah, I really like this one. This is the Strawberry Dream palette. This is probably my least favorite Lunar Beauty palette, but I keep it around because I kind of collect Lunar Beauty a little bit. I try to not have a collector's mindset, but if it's the Melt with the long rectangle pans, Viseart, and Lunar Beauty, and like low-key Huda Beauty and Natasha Denona, but very specific Huda Beauty and Natasha Denona palettes. Anyways, so here is Strawberry Dream. I do think this is fun when I want like a really bright pink look, but yeah, that doesn't happen that often. Then we have Eternal Eclipse. I love this one. I think this is such a good neutral color story, and then I love the murky grays and blues to go with it. I don't know, there's something about this color story that I just think is so unique and so pretty. Then we have Moonspell Volume 1. Have that upside down, sorry. Here's what this palette looks like. I think I remember loving everything about this palette at the time. As time has gone on, I don't know if the quality of the shimmers has changed or just like my standards for shimmers has changed, but this is no longer one of my favorites, but I do really like the mattes in here. Then we have Moonspell Volume 2. Also, sorry if my dog is barking in the background, but I gotta hustle my buns on this, so we're just gonna ignore him. This is purple, red, pink color story. I really like this one. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I do really like this color story, and I think I've gotten really cool like burgundy neutral looks with it, and it's been nice. This is the Lunar Beauty and Laura Lee Los Angeles Full Fantasy collab. This is the Full Fantasy collab. There we go. Okay. This is such a pretty palette. I really like this one a lot. Then we have Siren Sunset, another gorgeous one that they launched this year. The shade Water Nymph is so freaking pretty. Yeah, I really like this palette. Then we have Miss Nude Prism. Really, really like the tones in this. I think this is one of the prettiest neutral palettes I have in my collection. I absolutely love and adore that one. Then we have Life's a Drag Facelift. I really like this one. I really liked Life's a Drag and held off on buying this one until my Life's a Drag palette's quality started to go down a little bit. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to get this one too, because I really do like that one. Anyways, I love, love, love this. I continuously reach for it. I just really like it. So I do also have Life's a Drag and Greek Goddess, but they're not in my like rotation of palettes. I have them in a box like with my memory palettes. The only other palette that's in there is so it's those two, the Too Faced Pumpkin Spice, and then the Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson collab. Those are the ones I have over there. Okay, last up, Blend Bunny. We have the Dollhouse palette. This is their more muted, more neutral option. Very pretty. This is probably their palette that I use the least. Then we have Lure, which I think launched this year, yeah. And it's really pretty. I don't love this blue column, but I think the rest of these shades are gorgeous. Pearl is such a stunning multi-chrome shade. Then we have All Done Up. I did not like this one when it first launched. I was like disappointed in it, was like, nah, it doesn't do anything for me. I have since used it and changed my ways and my feelings, and yeah, really like this one. We have Primal. This is a gorgeous, pretty much rainbow palette, but I really like it. I don't like the shimmers. They're too dark for those to be the only options, but the rest of the palette, love. Sugar and Grunge is another one that like initially was kind of like, I don't know what to do with this, and then over time as I've played with it, I've become obsessed, but really like this one as well. Machina is one that I liked right away. I recently did a 3 looks with this palette. I really love all 3 looks, and I can definitely see myself reaching for this one more. Then last but not least in the whole palette collection, we have the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Surge palette. This is far and away my favorite Blend Bunny palette. Even though I don't like the shimmers, I think I have the original formula of the shimmers. I love the mattes, and I love combining this with other palettes. I love adding shimmers to it. Gorgeous, stunning, amazing. Anyways, those are all of my eyeshadow palettes at the time of filming. I did place an order for the Trixie Cosmetics Horse Girl and the collab with Juno and Birch because I was like, if I'm buying one palette, I might as well buy 2. So those 2 will be in my possession soon, actually, within the next few hours. They're supposed to be delivered. But yeah, that's everything. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!